here with Trae Stone. Trae has been one of the top producing territory managers in this company for a long time. And given that you heard from me some of the high level processes and procedures that we want to implement, I just thought it'd be good to kind of bring it down to the street level and hear it directly from somebody that year over year has successfully produced great results, keeps the wheels turning with our processes and procedures. So we're going to just ask a few questions, and then you guys can fire away with questions as well. So Trae, my first question is, how many accounts are you currently servicing?
I have 333 accounts on the books now, and that's an addition. When Rusty left, we got some of those accounts from Rusty. Previous to that, I think they were hovering right about 290, 295.
And talk to the group about how you structure the month. You know, how many are you seeing each month, and share with everybody the structure of your month.
I try to divide that up evenly. So in the course of a month, you're looking at about 111 inspections per month. Things vary. You get phone calls. People move from here to there, whatever the case might be, and you kind of have to do some shifting in order to keep that equality in month to month. It takes some work. It's that the accounts are kind of a living, breathing thing that change from month to month to week to day to day, and you just kind of have to manage it that way. So,
how far is the count from your house?
I think probably about an hour and a half in every direction.
Wow. And what percentage of those accounts are 90 minutes away versus, say, 45 minutes away?
The majority of what I have is probably 30 minutes or less away, and that's with Charlotte traffic. So it's a pretty. My Charlotte accounts are centralized very well. I've got some outliers in each direction, and the way that I set up my month, I go out there one time and then go back for the installs, and I'm done. I've tried to fashion it so that I go out there once a quarter. So when I go to Mooresville, I do all of Mooresville. I don't do part of Mooresville in 1 month and then have to go the next month and then have to go the month after that. And so because it's a living, breathing thing, things happen and some things get skewed and you do have to go down in the next month. But for the most part, those outlying areas I try to hit once a quarter, and that's it. So.
And you may have touched on this before, but on a given month, how many inspections are you doing?
Last month, I think I did about 106 or 107.
And so how many can you do in a given day?
I have done 17 in a day.
Wow.
And that's just logistics really more than anything else. If I'm centralized for the day in uptown Charlotte, I can hit 15, 16, 17 a day. If I've got to go from Mooresville to Rock Hill to wherever, which is why I try not to do that when I'm setting out my month, it slows the process down. Inspections are quick for me, and after 6 years, you learn the traffic patterns and where you can get into and where you can't, and it's definitely a benefit. COVID has really jacked that all up.
Great. Of these accounts, do you have a sense of what percentage of them have labels on all the units and have master estimates versus those that don't?
Labels, I would say 95%. Master estimates, not so much.
So to do 17 in a day without master estimates, talk to the team about maybe not 17 a day, but how quickly and how you work through a given inspection and what you say to the customer. I mean, how are you able to do, say, 8 inspections before lunch and another 8 after the lunch rush?
I think it's a combination of and a fine line, I think, of going in and being personable and having conversations as you go through, and getting in and getting to work and getting it done. And so I have found that, and I've shared with a couple of you guys that have ridden with me, if you do plan that day ahead of time and you break everything down, and you don't try to spread yourself around a large territory, you could get quite a bit done. There are days just like everybody else that I get up and I get going, and I've got my list, and my goal is 10. So when I create my list for that day, whether it's the day before, or 2 days before, or the week prior, I try to load it up with 15 or 16 restaurants, because you never know. You might have 1 or 2 that are closed permanently. You might have something that you just can't get into because they've changed whatever hours the manager's in during the day or what have you. You never know what's going to come up. So, and then you might blow through those 10 or 12 estimates, and then you don't really feel like you're done for the day, and you don't really have time to go back to QuickBooks or not QuickBooks, but Salesforce or the other instruments that you have. And so I always have a list, and I've got above so that I can go from there if I need to. So
what percentage of the time do you close a deal and get an order on the spot when you do an inspection?
I try to do that with every account. That is the easiest way to get through. I have found that the biggest challenges for me are having to backtrack and go back and make phone calls and try to get in touch with people, to get them on the phone, to get them to make a decision, or emails, or whatever the case might be, because I eat up more time following up with estimates than I do making the estimate. I mean, I could go through a gamut of estimates, and it takes me forever to get in touch with people. And you guys know, those of you guys that have been around for a while, have your established territories, you've got great people that are easy to deal with, and it's a quick, fast transaction. And you've got some GMs out there that you just need to hold their hand every time you go in there. And so
when you do the inspection, and walk us through that point, do you calculate how much it is, and what exactly do you say to your contact person to secure the order?
Well, I go through, when I walk in, at some point prior to me going in to the restaurant, and the disclaimer is, this is the best practice for me, and I try to do this in every account and every time that I go. I'm not perfect. There are some days where my plan has gone down the toilet, and I can tell my day is starting to go sideways. And sometimes I can pull it back in, and sometimes I'm just going to have a side work day. It's gonna suck. And so that's just the nature of the beast. But I try to look at each and every one of those accounts prior to going in, so I know where they're at. And if you stay on top of them and you've seen them the prior quarter, you should kind of remember where they're at. Okay, well, I remember I did a large order last time, so this time I'm probably not going to have a whole lot. Let me double check, go through each account before I head in, so that I know what I'm kind of walking into. I do that monthly, I do it weekly, and I do it daily. And it gives me an idea of kind of. So when I go through the month and I look at all this and I go, okay, I'm going to have a decent month, or it's going to be a struggle, because I know who's going to order for the most part. I know what kind of, in a decent range of how big those orders are going to be, and what to expect before I go in when I pull up QuickBooks to double check my memory, because my memory is great for some things outside of work, and in work it's a little bit better. So I'll check in each and every account, and I have a pretty good idea if I'm going in that I'm not going to get much. That'll just kind of awaken what I'm looking at to find other things as I'm going through. So if I know I did a $1,000 order last quarter, chances are I'm not going to have a whole lot. So I'm going to be double and triple checking strip curtains, door sweeps, hinges, handles, casters, whatever the case might be. It's going to be an add-on kind of visit. It's going to be hey, I'm here, like I am every quarter. I'm going to check everything out, but what I'm really looking for is how to help you in a different way.
So do you have a sense of the percentage of revenue from non-refrigeration gaskets?
Gaskets or overall services?
Well, anything other than refrigeration gaskets.
Yeah.
So whether, hot side, cutting boards, all the other stuff.
I think about a year and a half ago, I sent you a report on if you guys go into QuickBooks, you could pull all this stuff up, and it really is fascinating. If you do, you can pull up a report of everybody every month. You can drag it out to whatever month block period you want to drag it out to, and you can see an itemized detailed report of all the add-ons. You could get totals, you could compare those totals to other territory managers, and when you do that, it's kind of an eye-opening thing. And I think when I ran that report and shared it with you, it was about 12% add-on.
Got it.
That's pretty decent.
Yeah, so 88% refrigeration gaskets, and the rest is other products and services. And
that's really, you know, pandemic-wise and even pre-pandemic, you know, it really is really a sustainable amount of business that keeps me going from month to month when I know I'm not going to have a whole lot in sales and gaskets, and so it's a big help.
So with over 300 active accounts, do you ever have time, or how much time do you have to prospecting for new business?
I have not as much time now as I used to, and it's for me that's the struggle point for me with doing all the installs and all the estimates. It doesn't leave a whole lot of time for prospecting, but when I can get it in, I can get it in. And you know, there are some months just flow. October was a struggle. It was an absolute struggle from the beginning to the end. And you know, just doing shy of 20,000. I mean, I've had months that I've done 27, 28,000 that are easier than what I just went through in October. And so you just never know what you're going to hit. It might be a screw-in laden month. It might be a struggle. It might be easy, but.
Well, share with these guys in more detail. Like when you say you struggle, what does that mean? What were some of the struggles? Were they supplier struggles? Were they, installs that went sideways? What was the struggle?
There was a combination of, about 107 estimates, and I should have looked at it before I came this morning, but I think I ended up with 60 or 65 orders, and it's not a good ratio. If you guys were wondering, it's not a good ratio. It's not a typically average ratio for me. And so when I look at that, I did a lot of screw-ins last month. I didn't do a lot of extra repair work, but it was a struggle in terms of kind of pulling teeth to get people to approve. And I had a lot of managers approve on site, and then took a lot of work to try to get them back into the fold, even though there's a conversation on site about a service company, to getting them to actually turn in that work order. And so, I know for Service Channel, when they put in that work order, it comes out of their budget.
Yeah.
And so they'll hold on to it, and they'll wait until whether it's the next period, or they'll forget, or it's kind of some of that hand-holding thing that you need to do, and so yeah, it was a struggle in terms of that, and just people actually approving. I mean, if 80% had been approved, I think, which is about normal, it could have been a big month.
Well, you talked before about one of your biggest struggles is tracking estimates. So people that you verbally quote on site and don't approve it. Mm-hmm. Talk to the team about how you track those estimates, where physically or digitally do you kind of keep that list of people that have open estimates, and how exactly do you follow up?
Well, it's really technical. There's a notebook, and so here they are. They're also a great tool that we kind of implemented a year and a half ago, is taking those estimates and really assigning those estimates when you do them. So when you're putting an estimate through, and I don't know, it used to be that it was kind of a mandate, and I don't know if people have gotten away from that, but it's something that I just got in the routine of doing, so I do now. And so when I create that estimate, if it's approved, I click it to approved. If it's not approved, then I leave it as is. And so if you want to, at any given time during the period, you could go in there and run an open estimate report. And if you've got an open estimate report, you could go right down the list, make your phone calls through there, or email them through there, however it's going to be best for you guys to reach out to those people. And I mean, that's a great tool. I use my notebook because I try not to let it get away from me to get a report. and there's it is a lot of time. You're so much better off getting that approval on site and really pushing the issue if you need to, because the amount of time that you're going to spend going up and following up on open estimates is just a killer. And so if you can't get it on site, try to get those cell phone numbers, because that is the easiest way and the quickest way for those guys to get back to you. And sometimes they respond, sometimes they don't. But they don't respond, you kind of know where you're at because you know they got your text. It's a lot easier than trying to get on the phone and say, hey, is Jim here? Yeah, he's here, but he's busy. Yeah, no, he's not here. Yeah, who is this? And so.
Yeah, Trae's right about the cell phone parts, guys. I would highly encourage you to get cell phones from your customers. One of my projects moving ahead is to start doing more text marketing. You know, it's always hard to get people on a landline now, and especially in our industry. No one's got voicemail, no one has landlines, but everybody is joined at the hip to their cell phone. So,
and especially after COVID, because they're all either working on the line or mopping the floors or whatever the case might be. So they're doing all kinds of things now.
So Salesforce has been built that underneath the main section, the second section is for contacts. Right now I've got room for 2 contacts, but it's got a placeholder for their cell phone number. So I think what you're hearing from Trae is cell and texting is a great way to follow up with people. So I would definitely recommend that. And as Trae was saying, we can pull those open estimate reports from QuickBooks. So if you don't want to do the notepad, we can leverage the technology accordingly.
You know, I'll give you a good example, Andy. You know, when I went through November, I've got 149 accounts that are listed for this month. So we obviously have an issue, and it got skewed. And so in looking at that, and I'm looking at November, and then I pull up December, what does that mean? Well, that means if I just did 107 or 108, 9, 10, 11, whatever the case might be, and I was right on point, now I've got 159, I'm setting myself up for a really crappy December. And so what I have to do now is take whatever it is, 30 of these or 35 of these, and move them. And there's nothing wrong with that, because we're still going to be within that 120-day warranty. And it might end up being a better way to go that way about it. But you've got to kind of look ahead to keep everything in line. And I have found the best way to be the most consistent is to keep those numbers consistent. Even if you, I mean, whether you have 150 or whether you have 300, keep it consistent month to month, so it keeps that revenue flowing. Everybody gets seen. And you're in a better spot then you don't have a jacked up December, which we know is not very good anyway. So
Trae's having to load balance a little bit. Part of it is a result of the pandemic and the shutdown. It kind of threw
a lot of
things
it.
off
A lot of it is. You just have to massage it. It's a living, breathing thing.
So it's evident that closing it on the spot is the way to go. So I don't want to move off this point just yet, because I find that sometimes territory managers almost talk themselves out of a sale. I'm of the belief that you do your inspection, you get off to the side in a quiet corner, you compute the total. I usually just use the calculator on my cell phone, and then exactly what you say to that decision maker is really important. What I say to them is, listen, Frank, I just did an inspection. You got 2 drawers and 4 half doors, and I think the walk-in needs to be replaced. I can get back here in like the next 10 days to knock it out. It's going to run you $375.
And that's kind of how I go about it. I say, you know, it's $375. Don't forget to say plus tax, because people will get sideways on some tax, for real. So make sure you calculate correctly and you give them that total plus tax. And then you say, hey, you know what? Let me show you.
Yeah.
Let me bring you in here and show you what you got. Because me telling you is one thing, but when you see it hanging off the bottom of the door and you see the temp gauge that says 45 degrees,
right. And I'm assuming
it's a helper.
I'm assuming so. You say what I just said. And somebody, yeah, go ahead and knock it out. Others will say, well, can you show me? Or you'll get the sense that, you know, I can walk you around and take a look.
Yeah.
But I think that the best territory managers, they're comfortable with the silence. They're comfortable putting it out there. Hey, it's going to be $375 and get back here next week to knock it out, and then just shut up.
Yeah.
And let them respond next.
Yeah.
But what you don't want to do, and what I see a lot of new territory managers do, is they'll do their inspection and then they'll say, listen, I'll get back to my laptop later and I'll email you an estimate. That is the very last thing you want to do.
Yeah.
You want to try and secure the order on the spot.
Or instead of the silence, what I've heard also is, I know that's a lot, so, or but. Just like you said, leave it alone.
Yeah.
Leave it alone, let it marinate, and let them think about it. You know,
Correct.
And
Give it to them. You may think it's a lot, but that may be your own head trash.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't assume that
Yeah.
a $700 or $800 or $1,000 invoice is any big deal to people. Because
Yeah.
remember, they don't do it with you, and they bring their commercial refrigeration vendor in, or some ancillary commercial handyman. It's going to be more money with somebody else.
Yeah, yeah.
Question.
On that closing on the spot, I'm the same way. I love uncomfortable silences. I really do. 'Cause it really makes people feel uncomfortable, and they feel
They have to make a decision one way or the other. Yeah.
And it's like a gunslinger.
Yeah.
The person who talks first loses. So what I always like to say is I like to give them a little urgency. It's going to be $375 plus tax. Let's go ahead and get that taken care of for you today. I like to throw the today in there, because then they're like, oh, well, this is really going to do it now. And then you just shut up and see what they say, and they'll come up with some kind of objection, and then you can come back with whatever you need to
Yeah.
overcome that.
You're better as a counter mover, I think, than working on the offense after that. Yeah, for sure.
How often, Trae, are people questioning the price? How often are they asking for a discount, or is that the best you can do? And how do you handle that?
Price is probably the biggest issue. But I've got a lot of established accounts, thankfully, and they pretty much know. I mean, we've raised prices, I think, on the cents wise, but we really haven't raised a whole lot of pricing the whole time that I've been here, which is great. And that's one of the ways that I go about it. But I don't get a lot of pushback on price from existing customers. They pretty much know. They know what it is. They're familiar with the service, which I think is the biggest thing over anything. So,
my first pivot, if somebody brings up price, is to say, listen, I'll be back in 90 days. If you can't afford all this on your budget right now, if there's one gasket that could wait, it's probably that half door gasket. While we knock that one off, and I can pick it up in 90 days, and that might work better for your budget.
Yeah.
So you're not giving anything away, you're just reducing the expense for that quarter.
Yeah, or you could say, you know what, I'm happy to come back next month. When does your period end? Is a great question that I use. When's your period end? Oh, well, really, my period ends in 2 days. I'm like, oh, all right, dude. Well, listen, I can either come back in 2 days, or we could just wait 2 days and do it then.
Right.
So, yeah.
Cool. Brendan, question.
Is that kind of how you go about it with new customers as well, or is that more so just existing customers?
As far as
like overcoming the price issue, like with new customers, I've gotten a lot of, well, I don't know, that's so and so. They give us good prices.
yeah.
All that kind of.
Well, with the price match guarantee that we have that's a great tool and one that I use often. The other thing is the 120-day warranty that I throw out there. I'm not a big believer of, I'll give them the free gasket because it's out there and that's what we promote. And some people you need to. But I'm not a big believer of giving something away for nothing. And so I use that as a last resort. But as far as price, I kind of use the tire analogy. Is you could buy as cheap tires as you want to, but they're just not going to last. Same thing with gaskets. And I can prove it to you. Just give me the opportunity. And we can do a price-by-price comparison. I ask them for an invoice and say, hey, you got it from where? Okay, well, if you show me an invoice, I'll match it for you. That's not a problem. And I guarantee you, you're going to be a lot happy with the service. You're not going to get a 120-day warranty. If they do have a warranty, it's not going to get honored because they're not going to come back and check it. So unless you spend your time checking on that warranty, it's just not going to happen. And so I promise you I'm going to be here. I'll take care of that warranty. We'll price match it, and the service is just, it's going to blow it away.
And the way I envision the free gasket is when you say to a consumer on the spot, listen, I want to put one of our gaskets on your unit for free. Let me get in the back, do a free inspection. I'll write up one of your torn gaskets for the freebie, but I'll share with you everything in a few minutes after I take a look. So then you go back, you do your normal inspection, you add everything up, you reduce the price of the free gasket, and you go back to the customer and say, listen, Fred, just did my walkthrough. You got 3 drawers and 4 half doors that need to be replaced. I committed to our first gasket for free, so I've knocked the price off of one of the drawers. To get everything else done is going to be $475. I can knock this out next week for you. You want to go ahead and, why don't we go ahead and make that happen today? So that's how I see the free gasket. Yes, we're going to honor the free gasket, but hopefully it's going to lead to an order on top of just coming back for one freebie. But if it is just one freebie, that's fine also. But usually it produces more.
But you got to make sure you go back and follow up. And you don't have to wait the 90 days to do that. You know, there are many times when we're talking about open estimates. If I have an open estimate logistically, it matters too on how you do that. If it's an hour and a half away and I've got an open estimate for 2 gaskets, I'm probably not going to call you and follow up on it if that's all I got out there. But if it's in town and I've just written you an estimate for $1,000 and I don't hear back from you, and I've called a couple times and I can't get you on the phone, or you're not responding to me, or whatever the case might be, and you're in Salesforce for another 90 days, it's not going to be 90 days before I go back. I'll go back 30 days and check on you. And a lot of times they will say, well, yeah, I just need to wait for a period. Or a lot of you guys that are in restaurant business, as I would, you wear a lot of hats and you forget a lot of things. And so it's just in front of you. And if you just stop by, if it's 30 days, I'm not going to call. I'm not going to send an email. I'm going to go by and check it. And so a lot of times what will happen, especially now, there's so much turnover in the restaurant business particularly, that you'll send that estimate and then you turn around and you don't hear back from them from a couple days, and that turns into a week or 2 weeks, and the next thing you know, if you wait 90 days, there's another GM in the restaurant. You may not get that order, you might lose that account.
Right.
So if you can, hoof it over there. You know, you're going to be over there at some point anyway, so you might as well just stop in and say, hey, what happened, dude?
Right.
So happened to me with Palm.
Yeah.
Last month or the month before, Colin's not there anymore. I didn't hear back from him.
Yeah.
So I stopped back in. It took me 3 times to get in there to figure out what was going on.
They had a new person.
A new person, yeah.
The other point I want to make on the free gasket is sometimes you'll call on an account and they'll say, yeah, you know, your timing's not real great. We just replaced everything. To which I'll say, really, my timing's perfect. That's great. Can I get in the back and take a look? I want to put one of our gaskets on your unit as well, and that way we can really see in 90 days who lasted longer. Okay, I might take off one of the ones that was just installed. I'll clean it up. We'll put it in your supply closet. You can use it at a later date. But we can do dueling banjos right here, right now. Can I get in the back and take a look? Remember, that's your mission. Your mission is to get in the kitchen, do a free inspection, and put a free gasket on one of their units. So Trae, we talked a lot about the sales side. Let's talk about the installation part. In a given day, I know it's going to vary, but how many installs in a given day?
Yeah, it varies a lot. I think I have done 12 or 13 in a single day, and I have been as little as 3. So you know, it's size and it's logistically, and you know that I approach the install day differently than I approach the estimate day. I've got a list for my estimate day, and I go above that list to make sure that I have extra. But as far as my install days is a little bit more precise. And those of you guys that have ridden with me, you know on my list, I have times on where I go. So I start my day, I get up, leave the house every day at 6 a.m. If it's later than 6, it's late for me. And I'll break down, if I've got 3 or 4 installs, I won't do this. But if I'm strapped with a list of 8, 10, 12 installs, I'll break it down by time. And so I'll say, okay, I'm going to be here at 6:30 or 7 o'clock. That's going to take me 20 minutes. I'm going to leave there. I'll put a 7:20 there. And then the next one, it'll take me 15 minutes to get over here. Then I'm here at 7:35. I'm leaving at 7:55. And that's how I break down those heavy install days. And so I create a buffer of probably about, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes or so for every 4 or 5 gaskets. And that really keeps me on track. And you know, I've been pretty successful in staying on that time schedule. And when I don't have that, things tend to try to get sideways, for real.
What do you do with that window of time, when we can't be in restaurants, that, sort of 11:30-ish to 1:30-ish window?
I'm always trying to find, I think for me, the majority of the time, I'm working during lunch. Whether I'm driving from point A to point B or whether I'm in a restaurant, I mean, there aren't a whole lot of days where I can't find somewhere to get into. When I don't, I try to put in estimates so that I don't have to do it all at the end of the day, or update Salesforce, or send in orders. I think priority for me is to send the orders that I have. That's the first thing that I'm going to do, so I can get them in, so I can get them back expeditiously. And then I'll write estimates, and the last thing would be updating anything that I have. But I try to work through lunch pretty much every day.
So then when do you do the paperwork?
At night when I get home.
And so I'm sure the question on everybody's mind is, how many hours a week do you typically work?
I'd say on average probably 50, 55 maybe. So some weeks it's a lot, some weeks it's 65 maybe, and some weeks just flow, and it might be a 40, 45 hour week. And that's the beauty of what we do. It's you can set it up however you want, really, as long as the results are there. So.
Well, then my final questions are, what do you like best about the job, and what do you like least about it?
The best is probably two things: the freedom to kind of organize your days and go about being in business for yourself, but not by yourself, and kind of structure the things that work best for you. Like, we're talking about a lot of best practices for me, but that's not going to work for everybody. And so there are things that have, over 6 years, worked best for me through lots of trial and error. And I've kind of pulled pieces from person to person, which is probably the best way to go about it. And so I like that the best. I come from the restaurant industry, and so I love being around the people each and every day. And like we were talking about last night, being able to hear your pain and giving you the high five sign and peacing out and letting you deal with it. That's kind of nice, and not having to deal with that side anymore. So that's great. And then, having the ability to bring in the revenue equal to the work that I do. So if I don't have enough revenue last month, I got to work a little bit harder the next month. And then what I like the least is probably the same thing. It was a big struggle for me to go to making really good money on a salary, going to straight commission.
Yeah.
So it's it's a scary thing, especially when you're starting and you're trying to get a flow and you're trying to get your base together and get some loyalty, and it can still get kind of scary when you're looking at I'll tell you, March was scary when it shut down halfway through the month, and then there was nothing in April. It was time to sell some stuff, man.
Yeah, it was scary.
I sold off quite a bit.
Well, gang, floor's open. What other questions you guys have for Trae? Somebody must have something.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
How has COVID reshaped? Do you have experience from before? What differences do you see?
That's a really good question.
The question is, how has COVID reshaped things?
It has completely jacked me up, for real, and it has just destroyed my timing on everything. I get into a flow pattern kind of guy, right or wrong. Not everything I do is I could get better at a lot of things that I do. When we talk about this whole system, there's some things that I do well and some things that I don't do as well as others. And so it has completely jacked up that whole pattern that I have. And probably the biggest example is people are not in the restaurants at the same time. So there are a lot of times that I'm spending right now waiting for somebody to get there because, I don't trust me, I don't get to a location and say, okay, there's nobody here, I'm just going to chill. I get to that location, I move to the next one, I move to the next one, I move to the next one within, you know, probably a 5 to 10 mile radius. And then I find that there's nobody there. And then I got to go back to square one where I started. And so that's been the biggest struggle. And they will change from day to day, from week to week. And 1 week when you were there to get the estimate, they're in at, instead of being in at 7 now, they're in at 8 or 8:30. And then you go back to do the install, and there's nobody there till 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I've had
And
trouble
so,
with that.
yeah,
I'm like, do they ever work?
it's a nightmare. And you could call. The best thing is to call ahead and find out, but that's not always accurate either. Because it seems like the managers have really taken a liberty in their schedules now from day to day. And nobody is staying on point with really when they should be there. And so, yeah, it's wreaked havoc. That's one reason why last month was such a struggle.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Trae, question for you about sales force.
Yes, sir.
With the turnover in staffing, how on top of sales force and contacts are you? Because as I go through and try and help coach some of the newer folks, there's 10, 15 contacts.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if they're live or not active anymore.
Yeah, not great. Not great. Something I got to get better at. And so, and it's something that changes a lot in the restaurant business, especially now with COVID. And so, and that is important. And it's something that I struggle with, and something that I got to get better with. And you have to put the time into it, and you just got to kind of carve that time out. And it's hard to say, okay, every Thursday at 12 o'clock, I'm going to stop for the day. I'm going to eat lunch, put in my orders, and then the rest of the day is going to be an admin day. And that's great in theory until you're staring at $14,000 on the 15th and you're like, oh, I don't have time for admin this week. So, yeah, it's
Okay.
got to get better all the way around.
Got a couple questions on the like the open estimates. What I found worked for me, and I'll see what you do. Whenever you send an estimate, it sends you a copy of it. I have on my email, I have a file where I drop all my open estimates in
Mm-hmm.
there. So if they're not close enough, I'm going back through and call them. When do you, because I do a lot of, not a lot, but I do a lot of admin days when I'll spend half the day or the whole day just calling.
Yeah.
Calling. When do you do that? When do you find that to be most successful? And how do you kind of track if you do with
I do that occasionally, and that's what I will do. I'll take the estimate that I get and forward it so that they know I've already sent it, and I'll just attach a message on it. That way it's not coming from QuickBooks, it's coming from me. And I will do that, but that's kind of a last resort for me. Like I'll try to get somebody on the phone probably 2-3 times before I resort to that. And I mean, really, I'd rather go in. I'd rather call and then try to go in, but sometimes it's just not it just depends on the account too. I mean, if you have that kind of rapport with them, it might be best to go in. If you don't really have, if they're kind of wishy-washy, it might be best to do it the way you said. But I'll give them a couple phone calls and try to give them that opportunity that way, or a text or whatever the case might be. And then I'll shoot that as kind of a last resort. I'll send a text out if they don't answer me, especially if it's somebody that normally answers me. I'm not going to send them another text that's rude, but I am going to blast them with that email and say, dude, you want to do this or what? So, can we get this going or what's the deal? So.
What else?
Yes, sir.
How often do you space out those text messages and calls? Like every 4 days, once a week?
Every day.
Every day?
Yeah. So when I call the first day. If I can't get a hold of them, I'll call the next day.
Okay.
And after 2 or 3, I'll stop and move to another form of communication, whether it's that email or whether it's stopping by. And like I said, I'm a stop by guy rather than anything else, but with 111 estimates, if I'm not near that area, I'm not going to go out of my way to do it. That's when I'll go to the email and shoot it over. Some people just don't have the money. They don't have the money, and it's not a comfortable thing for a GM coming from a GM world to say to you, Andy, I don't really have the money this month. I know it's important. I know I'm going to get dinged on my health inspection. I know people care. I know it's going to affect my temperature, but I just don't have the money to do it right now. And there aren't a lot of GMs out there that will tell you that. There are some, and I would rather you answer me and tell me no then they'll leave me on the hook, so I have to spend freaking 45 minutes trying to get a hold of you, ignoring you. And some of my best customers do it. Sometimes they do it, and sometimes they don't. And it's one of those frustrating things. It just comes with the territory. And you've got some customers that are just super easy. They'll walk in. I've probably got out of the 333, probably 45 or 50 that we have a standing agreement. You come in, you do the estimate, you place the order. And that's the goal. That's where you want to get to, is that trust of them saying, I know you got my back, and you kind of have carte blanche to do what you want. But make sure you're responsible about it, for sure.
Great.
I do have a question. It's kind of like with new service channel orders and, Prego and whatnot.
Yeah.
If the GM gives you the okay on the spot, but they will not create the things through the service channel, do you go ahead and do the order? Or
No. No, I used to do that. We used to kind of have that as a standing thing. Hey, we'll do it, and then we'll worry about the work order later. We stopped doing that a couple of years ago, and so it is the most frustrating thing. Like last month was, and I have a lot of service channel accounts, and a lot of not so much Corrigo, but a lot of service channel accounts, and it can be very frustrating. And so I'll give you an example of Firebirds, where you sent that guy Tony that email.
Yep.
So he's a new kitchen manager. When I walk, and I've been doing Firebirds since I started. I've got all of them, and they've always been great, and great rapport with all those guys. And actually have brought one of them back from ordering once a year drop ship to actually installing every quarter now. And so I walked in and I said hi to everybody, and I make sure I grab the manager when I walk in the door, and to let them know I'm there, whether it's just a hi or hey, what's going on. And I walked in and started going through, and I said hi to him and a couple of the other guys that I know, and I'm going through, and he comes up and he's like, did somebody call you? I'm like, no, I'm just here to do a quarterly inspection. We do quarterly inspections for your gaskets and blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay. Just total attitude from the beginning. And so I kind of went through the thing, and I met up with him, and I said, hey, I'm Trae with the Seals. Are you you knew the GM here? Or I'm the executive chef. I'm like, okay, well, nice to meet you, executive chef. Here's what you got. We do the gaskets. As I said, we do the gaskets, and this is what you got to order, and do you want to go ahead with the order? He goes, well, you're not going to order anything for me. And I said, well, I'm not going to order anything without your approval. He goes, well, it's a good damn thing, because if you did, I'd send it right back. I said, okay. Well, listen, Tony, I'm Trae, and this is what you got, and I'd love to get them ordered for you. I said, I wouldn't order anything for you. We deal with Service Channel through you guys anyway. Well, yeah, you're right, we do. And I said, okay, well, I'd love to get these going for you. You've got a gasket in the bar that's under warranty. I'm happy to cover that for you. He goes, well, we'll definitely be doing that one. And I said, okay, well, great. I don't need a work order for that, but I'd love to get the rest of these for you guys. And so we kind of broke the ice on that. I went away, did something else, and came back. It was a little bit warmer, and he said, well, send me the estimate. I said, I'll shoot it over to you. I said, if you could, when you decide to do it, is what I said to him, if you can create that work order and Service Channel, that'd be great. And so he responded to me in that email, and he already knew about Service Channel before you even chimed into him on that. And it still took 3-4 days for him to do that. I mean, I've still got a couple that, I have people that call me out and ask me to go through, and they still don't create the work order. And so, again, some of it is budget, and some of it is they just have so much going on they don't remember, and some of them, I swear, some of them just want to be babied.
Yeah.
They really do. And that's just part of what we do. And if you come with it from a service point of view, from your heart, to want to do the right thing and to help them, it's a triangle. It has to be 3 equal sides. It has to be the customer, it has to be you personally, and the other equal side has to be the company. So everybody has to win. It's that win-win-win, actually, in that situation. You've got to win. They have to win. And the company definitely has to win. And if you go about each and everything you do that way, I think you're going to be a big winner. Coming from the restaurant business, Jeff and I talk a lot about it. It's you don't find a lot of vendors that you can trust, and that's kind of your foot in the door to make sure that you build that trust factor with them. And look at it, yeah, you have to make money, and we have to make money for you, but you also have to provide a service. And it doesn't take a lot in this business I mean, they call people out, refrigeration companies. They can't get there for a week and a half, 2 weeks. And then when they do get there, they charge you to come out then. They charge you because they don't have the part. And they treat you like dirt. And their work is just garbage. So